So today here at South Valley Equipment, we are lucky enough to have the opportunity to interview Chad with Patriot Track and Tire, who's going to teach us some things about rubber tracks and how to make an informed decision on what to buy and who to buy from when you're buying tracks for your machine. You know, Chad, one of the things I always get asked, or I always see pop up on the internet through the different forums and stuff, is what is the best track, or what's the best place to buy tracks for my machine? And I don't really know what that means. Is it the best price, the best quality, or the most convenient place to get tracks? So I think what we need to do is we need to be educated a little bit. We need to know more about the tracks, what they are, where they come from. I'm going to ask you some hard questions. But first of all, from one family-owned company to another, I appreciate you taking this time to do this interview and tell us about tracks and help us make a better, more informed decision when we purchase tracks for our machines.
Sure. Well, and I want to say first and foremost, thank you as well for, from one family-owned company to the other. I've known you many years, and I respect the hell out of you. So,
well, I appreciate that, and likewise, we've done business together for a long time because I didn't know anything about tracks, but I understand them more, and I understand how important it is to make sure we get the right track from the right place. So, let's get right into it. Everybody out there claims they're a manufacturer now. Everyone's got the best track. They can supply you the best quantity, whatever. Get it to you the fastest, and it's the best track. Who is the manufacturer? Where do these tracks come from?
So that's an excellent question, and the market tends to do a couple of things. One, throw a little bit of smoke and mirrors, and everybody claims to be the manufacturer or the end-all be-all. Oh, we have this facility overseas, or oh, we have this group of people working for us in an ancillary plant doing all these things. The real truth of the matter is that there's only really a handful of manufacturing companies that make rubber tracks in the world. And we're talking in the teens. We're not talking 100, we're not talking 200. As far as facility goes and warehouses, there might be hundreds of warehouses that store rubber tracks overseas, but as far as manufacturing plants, it's a finite number. So a lot of what people do is the marketing ploy, and we'll kind of get into that as we educate what it is that is on each rubber track that everybody that is listening to this should know, how to identify what you need for your specific job or your jobs that you're doing. And most importantly, all the smoke and mirrors aside, you have to solidify, personally, I feel like you have to solidify a relationship with someone that has a direct line to where these come from. Otherwise, your warranty claims get lost in a translation. If you ever have any issues and you're buying online, there is nobody that you can scream at. And most of the time, that human connection, that ability to say, hey, I might have messed up, but I need some help on this, being able to get that support, I think, is job number one.
And it's support. It doesn't seem like everybody really knows the track out there. I mean, it seems like if I call someone and I want a quote on a track, where's the quote coming from? I mean, a lot of these people don't even store tracks. It seems like they're just picking and pulling from anywhere in the world or anywhere in the U.S. and just whatever, shipping from wherever it's convenient. How do I know what I'm getting?
So that's an excellent question. Unless the person that you're buying from has a direct line like yourself to me that is a direct importer and distributor of the product, unfortunately, most of the time what they're doing is either 3PLing the product or they're buying and reselling the product and throwing more smoke and mirrors in the air saying, oh, I'm a preferred distributor for XYZ, when in reality they just do a bid program where they go to 15 or 16 distributors in the US, and whoever has the lowest price, that's who they buy from.
So what comes into play with the pricing?
So,
I mean, if it's only coming from a certain amount of manufacturers, what determines the price on them?
So the greatest part about there being a finite number of manufacturing houses overseas is that as you get into the nuts and bolts of pricing, you can start to discern who's more greedy than other people, right? The distributors and the importers should be dealing with dealer networks. If they're not dealing with dealer networks, then they're taking money out of the pockets of the people that should be pushing the product. Coupled with that, there is no support system for the people if they're not directly related to the importer of the product. They do not have the support system if their customer has an issue to be able to go to somebody and say, hey, we had this XYZ problem. Is it a systemic problem, number one? Where was this track made, number two? A lot of times the people on the internet, what you'll find is they actually don't know any of these questions.
And I've noticed that, is just that they don't know that.
Yeah.
And that's where it's important to go straight to the manufacturer, direct line to the manufacturer like yourself. But you mentioned something I want to back up on. And you know, we've got all these distributors, but we've got OEM quality. What's the difference between OEM quality and like the product that you carry?
Yeah, so OEM quality, you know, as you're looking at OEM manufacturers in the world, there's some smoke and mirrors there too, but the typical OEMs are gonna be your Camsos, your Bridgestones. There's a company out of Korea called DRB. Those are really your manufacturer OEM spec. Of those, quality-wise, Bridgestone is number one. There is not really any track that can stand up to Bridgestone's length of life, and it really has to go into the way that they make their track.
Where are they made?
So Bridgestone, most of the time, 90% of the time, is made in Japan, mainland Japan.
Okay.
And the way that they make their tracks, and I won't go into the weeds this way, but the majority of the manufacturers overseas dip their iron cores. And what that means is that you get different amounts of adhesive on each iron core. Bridgestone sprays each iron core individually, meaning that the vulcanization material or the adhesive material that's used when they bake the actual track is more able to adhere to the rubber product being pressed onto it, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes sense, but it sounds expensive.
It's extremely expensive.
So,
and that's why Bridgestone, as an aftermarket provider, doesn't really have any market share, mainly because of the price point. So if you, for instance, or you listening to this, are an owner-operator and you're looking for dollar per hour, best dollar per hour, the easiest and best place that you can go is, like you said, someone that knows where they're importing from, someone that has a direct line to that person that's importing, and then purchase from that person repeatedly, because as soon as you have that line to the manufacturing house, it's a lot easier for you, well, number one, to sleep at night, because you have that support system. And number two, you realize that if you do have an issue, you can get somebody on the horn immediately, and then they can solve the problem as well.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate, you know, the honesty on that and what differentiates between, you know, quality of the tracks and what have you. So now that we kind of got all that away, teach us a little bit, show us what we're looking at. What are we looking for on these tracks? What do the markings mean? What do the different tread patterns mean? What's the best in the mud, snow, dirt, concrete? Let's get into that. Is that okay?
Perfect.
All right, so now when we're looking at a track, what are some things that we should look for either on the track we own or maybe the track that we're looking at purchasing?
So that's an excellent question. A lot of times when you're purchasing product, you want to put back on the machine what you had on the machine to begin with. And what a lot of aftermarket resellers in the market do is they have a big lookup, and they go off that lookup and they sell you that track. Well, the problem is sometimes you can change out some undercarriage parts or sprockets, things like that, and your guidance might be off or whatever. Whatever's on your machine, you want to put back on your machine. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go over a couple of markings on the rubber track, I think, that are extremely important, not only for you to know, but also everybody listening. That way you can educate yourself about what it is that I have on my machines currently, what it is that I need to buy, and if your current reseller program or whoever you're buying from, whether or not they know what they're talking about as well.
Yeah, because I mean, like when I'm getting a track from you, the first thing I look for is the size, and it's a bunch of numbers, something, something by something, 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 something. I don't know what all that means, but where do we find that?
So the size of the rubber track is going to be on the inside lip, either on both sides or on one side, depending on the manufacturer overseas. And those are just plate inserts that they have in the mold, and it just basically embosses your serial number. We'll go over where to find the branding on the track, which will be on every track, and then the size or the quote-unquote part number as well.
Okay, so branding, date code, or serial number, kind of the same thing, right?
Sure.
And then the size, that's our most important things. Mm-hmm. So how does that size work? Let's say it's a let's just say 420, 70, 50. You're laughing because I have no idea.
So usually the size of the rubber track, it's either going to go width, link, pitch, or width, pitch, link. And what that means, and we'll kind of go over that here, the width of the track, obviously, it's pretty simple. It's how wide the rubber track is end to end laterally.
Okay. So that's going to be your first number. Is it always?
Correct.
Okay. No, you just said that. Okay, I'm sorry. It
so
can go either way.
Most of the time, depending
largest
on
number will be.
Yeah, the largest number will be the mm of the rubber track.
Okay.
So 450 mm wide, that's what this track is, which is about 18 inches, 17.75 inches, something like that. So 450 mm wide, this has 42 links, and there's 86 mm in between each link. So if I was looking at this size, it would read 450 by 42 by 86. Now what the industry does is sometimes they like to throw smoke and mirrors, so sometimes they jumble those numbers. So some people put the pitch and the link swapped. So a 450 86 42 would be the same as a 450 42 86.
Okay, most people should know the difference when you ramble off a number like that. So if I got two of my numbers mixed up, would you know?
Yes.
That's what I'm asking. I know you would.
Yes, of course.
Because I'm dyslexic as hell.
So size out of the way, and that's going to be marked into the rubber track as well, as you'll see on this side here.
Okay.
The next thing that you're going to want to look for, and this is important for if you're buying online especially, do I recommend that? No. But is it a convenient thing that you can do? Yes. If that's the only thing that you have access to, buy online, get it shipped direct to your house, all those things, whatever fits that customer need, I encourage you to do it. If you have somebody like yourself, and anybody watching this, feel free to call Brady to get your rubber tracks and tires. But all that aside, what you'll need to start logging as you buy new rubber tracks is the serialized code. So the serial number has a couple of things. One, it's attached individualistically to each rubber track, and each rubber track has a date code built into that code. So if you'll see here, this is our serial number for this specific track. The date code is switched because, again, smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. So this was manufactured in 2023. That's important because as you're buying rubber tracks, a lot of rubber track distributors will have old stock, or they won't follow FIFO, or first in, first out. If they're not following those two rules, sometimes things slip through the cracks, and you can get a 5-year-old, 6-year-old track with a brand new track, and they sell them at the same time. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at your serialized code and they're drastically different, give Brady a call. Brady will tell you how to discern which and what way to go about either returning that old track or if it will function okay.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with mainly warranty. You know, warranty is kind of a funny situation. You know, when did you put the track on? It's like you said, we need pictures of the serial number. When I install it, I take pictures of the serial number of the machine, the serial number of the track, and the hours, and they're all date and time stamped. And that's just something that we provide for the customer so that we know if we have a warranty issue, we have all the information we need to help warranty that. Because without that information, it does get tough to just say, yeah, I'll just send you a new track. You know what I mean? So yes, you probably have the best warranty. You stand behind your product. I stand behind the product. But you got to understand how the warranty works. And that's where all that comes into play.
If you get it put on by your OEM dealer in your area, make sure that they log those things for you as well. If they are not logging the hours on your machine, if they are not logging the serial number on your paperwork to associate that with a date and time, request that from them. It is their job and duty to make sure that they stand behind the warranty, just like it is the person upstream that they bought from that really is behind the warranty. Right?
Awesome. Well, now that we understand what all that means, let's look at some of the tread patterns, because that's going to be the next question that most people are going to ask. And so I noticed that you've already got a couple of designs laid out here. I mean, of course, this isn't all the tread patterns, so kind of give us an idea of what we're looking at and what the difference is. So we'll kind of start with this one right here. What would you call this?
Sure. So this is what we call a ZZ pattern. This is pretty much industry standard. If you're dealing with a mainline dealer that is directly importing, 90% of the time they're going to have this tread available for your track loader. This track is really good when you need traction volume. So if you're trying to push snow, if you're in mud, if you're in loose dirt, if you're in loose gravel, things like that, this track will perform demonstrably better than most other tread patterns, simply because it is a bar track, and the distance between the lugs is going to be exactly, well, it's 86 mm, because it's link to link.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Now, okay, so excellent traction. Let's put on a scale of 1 to 10, what would the life expectancy be?
So if we're talking about longest life for CTLs or compact track loaders, you're going to want a large block, or you're going to want a tread pattern like our lightning bolt that we'll get to later on here in a second. But long story short, you sacrifice life with the more traction volume you have.
Okay.
So they're inversely proportionate. A lot of guys like this for pushing snow, but if you start doing concrete or any sort of demo, this track will not last that long.
So the more traction volume,
The less length of life.
and pardon the pun, but the less rubber meets the road.
Yes, sir.
So since there's
Correct.
reds, okay, all right, makes sense. So what you're doing, so what you mean by volume is the amount of material we're grabbing.
Correct.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
So that would be your typical ZZ tread.
Okay.
If we're going over to the C pattern, this is kind of what we like to call the Alterrain tread, right?
Okay.
This is kind of best of both worlds. It's not the best in anything that it does. It doesn't give you the best traction. It doesn't give you the longest life, but it does kind of okay in all environments. And that's going to be your C pattern track here. And C pattern, I'm sure everybody that owns a track skid steer has seen this pattern, because it is basically ubiquitously used in the
It
industry.
is, yeah, we see that a lot. Okay, so an okay track.
Correct.
It's good
And
for everything. It's a good all-around track.
Yep.
Okay, now what is this funky design?
So this is what we call our lightning bolt tread pattern. And this is kind of combining the idea of large block, which will give you the longest life but no traction, and adding traction into it whilst not sacrificing the length of the life. So what we did here is these iron cores here, the ribs of the rubber create what's called continuous ground contact. If you draw a straight line from the tip here all the way across, it meets the other side here. So as you cam that around your machine, you always have rubber meeting the road, which means it's a smoother ride, better on asphalt, better on concrete. It's also decent on turf. Doesn't tear it up too much unless you're doing, obviously, turning. And we also reinforce the roller base so that you still have the length of life comparable to the large block, but it also has traction volume, not as good as the ZZ, but more traction than if you were to go C pattern.
Best traction, just kind of pretty good at everything.
Yep,
Really good at everything.
correct.
Awesome. Well, now what's the price difference? Like, or is this going to be your most expensive track?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So as you go up in durometer of the rubber and length of life, or the makeup of the rubber track, it does increase, right? So your cheapest rubber tracks in the C pattern and the Z pattern, they're going to be comparable within that 2 to 3, 5% kind of cost. You're adding about 10 to 15% when you're looking at a lightning bolt versus the standard treads.
Okay, awesome. Now, what's this one on the end? Because this is not a C-tail. This is going to be more of an excavator, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is an excavator track that we manufacture. Most excavator treads, they're going to all be similar. Large offset blocks, because you're never moving very fast. And if the machine's not moving very fast, you don't need a lot of traction. And if you're doing a lot of digging with it, you're not moving it around everywhere, not trying to track up things most of the time. Obviously, if you are, talk to your reseller and make sure that you are buying the best rubber track for your specific mini excavator needs. So if you're tracking long ways, make sure to mention that to your reseller. Make sure that they understand the needs that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, because some of my customers specifically make sure that their ride quality, even though it's a slow-moving excavator, ride quality is very important to them.
And if you look at this rubber track, we did the same idea. We tried to get continuous ground contact from point to point so that you don't have the moving of the machine
That's
like
what's
you
making
would.
the bouncing and the, yeah.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. So Chad, thanks for sharing all that information with us. That's very valuable, and I appreciate you having South Valley Equipment as a preferred vendor of Patriot Track and Tire. But let's say that somebody doesn't buy from me, they want to buy from someone else. What are some questions they should ask that distributor or person they're getting the track from?
That's an excellent question. So first and foremost, ask what they know about the rubber tracks. Where are they getting the rubber tracks from? Are they a direct distributor? Are they buying domestically? Are they importing the product? And most importantly, and I can't stress this enough, where are they stored?
Okay.
Are they stored outside? Are they stored inside? If they say they're stored outside, make sure that you probe that. How long have they been outside? How are they stored outside? And even if they're stored indoors, make sure you know how high they're stacking them. Make sure that they're not stacking them too high, because the lateral pressure can delaminate the tracks over time. And if they're storing them outdoors and they're not covered, the problem that you run into is UV over time. And it will cause the tracks to start to ozone, and it will cause premature failure to the end user that thinks that they bought a new track when in reality it was stored outside.
That's a
and
great
beat by the
point.
sun.
That's some things I didn't even think about, especially stacking them laterally. I didn't realize, but yeah, you make sense. I mean, because these tracks are heavy.
Oh yeah.
Well, great. Again, thank you very much for your time. Please give us a chance to quote you a set of tracks here at South Valley Equipment. Be more than happy to help you, just knowing that we've got a direct line to the manufacturer through Patriot Track and Tire.
And if you are a reseller or you are a mainline dealership and you do not have access to the Patriot Track and Tire product, please go to our website, patriottrackandtire.com, and submit a request to become a vendor or a reseller, and we'll take care of you just like we take care of South Valley.
Awesome. And all these links will be in the description of the video. Thanks for watching.